With the Director of Athletics at Campbell University, Omar Banks. And Omar, we'll start off with what has been an unprecedented semester. How are things going right now as we talk about a week before Christmas for Campbell University Athletics?
Well, first, Chris, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to connect, let people know some things that are going on inside of our department. I wish we had a opportunity to do it sooner, but you know, my professor always said the best time to plant a tree was 5 years ago. The next best time is now. So at least we're getting a chance to do it. But things are going as well as can be expected. I think from everything that we're doing, from a university perspective, and making it through the semester. We had a small pivot in there with 2 weeks where we went online, but we managed to make it through. We're doing as best as we can. As far as athletics, we have our men's and women's basketball team in season right now. The challenges that are in our industry, they're real. But at the same time, I think all we can continue to do is the best with the knowledge that we have, and we continue to try to move forward. Of course, there's always a lot of concern. We want to make sure that we do everything that's in the best interest of our student athletes as far as health and safety. So we're providing them with all kinds of testing, making sure that they have the personal protective equipment they need, things like that. But again, I think as we wind up and we're getting closer to Christmas, I think a lot of people are ready for a small break. COVID fatigue is real. And I know that, you and others on our staff have stepped up in a really big way to help fill the gaps and try to make this season for our student athletes as normal as possible. But in the end, we have not had to have any furloughs or any layoffs. We haven't done anything that we've seen some of our bigger counterparts have to do. And again, that's a testament to everybody pulling together, understanding the realities of what we're dealing with, and just being Campbell strong.
If you could take us back to August when this 1 month football season came together and go through your decision making there.
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you, it was a lot of back and forth, with the conference. We didn't know if we were going to play football. We were going to play football. And then I remember, it seems like it was yesterday when the Big Ten and Pac-12 announced that they were suspending all football activities. And then the question became, well, what are we going to do in the Big South? I'm a big believer that if you have the resources and you have proper opportunity to provide opportunities for our student athletes, then you should at least give it a try. And I remember having a conversation with Dr. Creed, and he asked me a lot of questions. And, I remember just stating, it's high risk, but it's high reward. If we have the opportunity to play and we have testing available and our players want to do it, why not try to provide a safe pathway back to sports? And so we knew that some other schools were doing it. And, kudos to Coach Minner, because his leadership with the team was very instrumental in them wanting to play. I know that there may have been a couple of players that opted out, but in the end, once the green light was there, the players were all in. And I remember walking out to the practice, telling them that, hey, we got App State and we got Wake Forest on the schedule. And I remember the guys just cheering. They were just happy about it. So at the end of the day, the decision wasn't an easy one. It wasn't taken lightly. And at any time that things went south or didn't go the way we wanted them to go, I had the authority to pull the plug at any time from President Creed. But, it was a testament not only to the coaches and the staff, but the players as well, because they had to really come together and pull together as a team to make sure they stayed, physically distanced, wear their masks and do all the things the right way. So the fact that we went through a 4-week season, over 1,600 tests with 0 positives by 3 different companies, that's amazing. I mean, true team effort, man, true team effort.
I'll take everybody back to when that decision was made. Within the walls of Campbell, within the athletic department, everyone was 100% behind it, but it raised some eyebrows around the nation. It was considered by some a risk. Looking back on it, a no-brainer from what it got us. But it was a risk to make that decision to move forward,
You're
correct?
right. And you're absolutely right. And we knew that. But we knew that we also had, a top-notch medical staff. We knew that we had availability of testing available for our players. We knew that it was only going to be a 4-game season. And one thing that I failed to mention was leadership of Ricky Ray and all this as well, our deputy AD. He did a really phenomenal job of answering the calls when we got calls about playing games. I mean, we had, I would say, at least 8 other schools that had called us. I think the only caveat that I really had was I don't want to get on a plane. And if we can make it regional, let's do that. And to pull off, Coastal Carolina, App State, and Wake Forest, we already had Georgia Southern on the books, was great. It's due to a lot of his relationships and ability to work the schedule. And so I'm glad that he was able to get it done. But like you said, it was definitely a risk. And we knew that there was some risks in that. But we also felt like we had prepared our protocols as best we could, especially with the availability of testing, how we were keeping our players separate and practicing in small groups and doing things the right way. Just providing leadership in a pandemic is unique in and of itself. And I do think that true character and leadership showed up in a lot of different ways this season.
During that month, 3 national TV games, Friday night prime time on ESPN, on ESPNU, on the ACC network. I know that you have seen, and there's dollar figures amounts, there's eyeballs, there's social media posts, but the exposure that Campbell University, Campbell Athletics, and the football program got during that month is pretty much priceless, isn't it?
I'll tell you that the answer to that is absolutely. Absolutely. If you remember some of the statistics from that first game where it came down to the last play, um, the one statistic that stands out was the 863% increase in website traffic to our admissions website. I mean, that's phenomenal. My hope and my goal is to always, first and foremost, put Campbell University in a positive light through athletics. We do have a platform. We have wonderful coaches. We have wonderful teams, wonderful student athletes, and it's a gateway to show the world how great Campbell really is. We have a law school, medical school, pharmacy program, nursing. We have all of these great programs. And once people get an opportunity to see that, Campbell can not just be, oh, it's in Bowie's Creek. It's, wow, Campbell really is a robust school that we should seriously consider. And again, that's not just from an academic perspective, it's an athletic perspective. So when we did that, the games, we actually partnered with Nielsen in order to get some statistics about that because it had never been done before at Campbell, right? So basically, with all of the advertising, the ESPN Top 10 play versus Wake Forest, all of the games on TV, media, newspaper, all of that stuff amounted to almost $3 million of advertising for the university. And remember that's in 1 month. $3 million. I mean, I just don't have that sitting over here in my budget to pull out to do, but it was a great opportunity to showcase Campbell University football, and do it in such a manner to show people that, hey, this small little school in Bowie's Creek figured out a way to get it done.
A successful fall for so many different reasons, Omar. And now as you look ahead to the spring, you're in a similar situation. There are a lot of unknowns, but at least the planning going on. There is, knock on wood, going to be a whole lot of sports happening in the creek around February and March.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we talk about like the number of sports, as we look at it right now, the decision to pause last spring and bring student athletes back this spring, a lot of people thought the pandemic would be over. That's why we paused and said, let's just get to the fall. It's worse now than it was when we paused. But recently we've seen, the vaccines for the virus are being shipped out. We've had some instances where, the return to play has actually, been very good for a lot of different teams and following the protocols. Everybody's just piggybacking off of each other. Everybody has their medical teams, things like that. But it'll be a little different when we get here in the spring, because now you're talking about not just one sport, which football played this season, not 2 sports where you have men's and women's basketball currently playing. You're talking about the rest of our sports. And we have 21 sports. And once we get into that February, March timeframe, it's going to be full tilt. And we're going to have to be extra cautious, even more diligent about what we do and how we do it, and making sure that we follow our own protocols. We see how it's going on with football, with a lot of teams pausing and canceling games because people are popping up positive. And so those are challenges that, I'll be honest with you, I think about those. It kind of keep me up at night because it's a little bit different with 20 sports going on at one time versus one or two.
All right, the tough questions are over. I promise. We'll get to the fun stuff. This is something that I usually do with all of the coaches, and that now it's great for you. This is like this is your life sort of thing. So we get to know a lot more about you. And I'll start all the way back when Omar Banks was little and coming up. What was your childhood like? What sports did you play? How did you fall in love with sports?
You know what? That's a great question. I think for me, I can go all the way back to my childhood. I grew up in Panama, so that was very unique. My dad was in the military, and Panama, the temperature never drops below 68 degrees. So I was outside all the time. And I remember moving there when I was about 4 years old, and I had a bike, and I would ride my bike for hours, and I would go out and I'd play with my friends. We'd run and play tag for hours on end. So from a young age, I always liked to run. I just never really knew how fast I really was until we moved back to the States. And that's when we settled in Newport News, Virginia. I remember I was playing with some boys, and football coach came out, and we were all out there, playing, the one little sport we call kill the man with the ball. So we were in a field running around, tackling each other, and the coach was like, "Hey, y'all need to come and play football." And he's like, "You're pretty fast. Have you ever played football?" I said, "No." So he's like, "You ought to come out." So I went to my dad. My dad was like, "Let's go." And the rest is history from there. I mean, football became my biggest passion. I loved track. I was really good at track and field as well. But as I progressed and went through high school, it became very evident that, I had an opportunity to play football in college. And so, kept my grades right, and did very well on my SAT, and I was able to get a football scholarship to the University of Richmond.
Going to the University of Richmond, what was it like at that? Of course, went on to be an FCS power. What was it like when you there, and how was it playing college football?
College football back then is different than it is now. And you can ask somebody that played 20 years before I did, they'd say the same thing. Richmond had been a decent team in the 80s, but when I got there in the early mid 90s, we were still building something special. And I had two head coaches. My second head coach is probably one of the biggest influences that I had. His name was Jim Reed. But he came in, and I just remember, he always, put his arm around me and talked to me when I was going through some difficult times at Richmond. But I would say it was a typical college experience. You live and you learn, you grow. You really don't realize the opportunity you have until you come out of it. And so, in looking back on it, I think I made the most of it, because I was probably one of the few people that, knew early on that I may never make it to the NFL, but I better get my college degree. Funny but true story. So my freshman year, all the freshmen come in early. And again, the Coach Reed, tells everybody, look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, and look behind you. He said, one of you will have an opportunity to try out for an NFL team. The rest of you, you are here to play football and go to class. And I'm sitting here like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. But you had half the guys walking out of the room talking about, yeah, I'm going to be that one guy. I'm going to be that one guy. And I'm looking around. I'm like, this dude is 6'2", 195 pounds. That dude is 6'5". Here I am. I'm like 5'11 and a half, 165 pounds. I better get my degree. So it really did, that conversation, with the players really helped shape, my experience there. And I think I did a lot to take advantage of, my time there while I was at Richmond.
What position did you play, and how were your teams there?
I was a defensive back, so I played corner. A little safety, but I was more of a cover corner. I was more to the field. So I was like a left cornerback. And I guess because of my height, I might have been one of the taller defensive backs, but I always covered like one of the taller receivers. But I was never that big. I think my playing weight was maybe 175 pounds, but I was fast. I knew I was fast. Um, so my first year there, my team, we went 7-3-1. We finished in third, so we did not make it to the playoffs that year. My second year, we took a step back and we went 3-8, and then we had a coaching change. And then my junior year, we were 5-6, and then my senior year, we were 6-5. And that senior year was the first time, I think, in like 20 years that we had actually went undefeated at home. So I can actually say that that was one of the claims to fame with my class, my graduation. And then the very next year, the team went on to the FCS playoffs and ended up playing. And then for the next 3 to 4 years, they ended up going to the playoffs. So we were building something very special there. The culture really came around under Coach Jim Reed. And, it culminated, with that national championship in 2008.
Being a student athlete, how much, if any, does that help the role you're in right now, looking over so many student athletes?
It helps only because I can put myself in their shoes with my experience. It's a lot different trying to say I understand exactly what a wrestler has to go through physically, but I understand the time commitment. I understand what it takes in order to be a successful student athlete. And so that's why one of the things I always try to do is put myself in a student athlete's shoes. Again, I might not play tennis, I might not play golf, which I do, but at the same time, I understand the rigors of being a student athlete and what it takes to, wake up in the morning, go to class, go to workout, go to practice, come back and go to study hall, and turn around and do all that 5 days a week, and then go out and prepare for a competition. So it really does help from that perspective. And yeah, I want to make sure that people understand that is actually really, really huge. Someone that really doesn't understand what a student athlete has to go through mentally and physically in order to maintain a high level of success.
You end your football career, you have your degree. Take us through what happens next. NC State intern? How does that figure in the whole thing? And what was your path like after you graduated?
Yeah, funny but true story. So when I graduated from college, my first job, I was working at FedEx. I was a OSHA coordinator and a pickup delivery guy. And so it was good. It was fun. I liked driving and getting around. But I knew that after I had graduated with a degree in business that I wanted to do something else. And so I ended up leaving Virginia and I ended up moving to North Carolina, where I started working for IBM. And my sports information director at the time, his name was Phil Stanton. Never forget him. I remember stopping by University of Richmond, before I drove down, and I said, you know what, I really would like to get into athletics and just do something. I know I have this job, but like, it's 6 o'clock and you're still in the office. I don't think I'm gonna be working every day. So he was like, let me make a phone call. There was a woman at NC State who I think oversaw the SID department, but she was leaving to go work for the LPGA. And before she left, she actually was able to get me an internship at NC State. And so during the day, I moonlighted. I'm sorry, well, I would say I moonlighted, but I worked, at IBM during the day. And then I would leave, grab something to eat, and then I would go right over to Reynolds Coliseum, where I worked in there in the sports information department from like 5 p.m. to 8:30 each night. And we're preparing for football. And I'll never forget it, because that was the year that I know Torrey Holt was on the team and they beat Florida State and Carter Finley. That was rocking and rolling. It was an awesome feeling. That's when I knew at some point I'm going to have to get into college athletics full time.
You got the bug then, obviously, working in athletics, but it was the corporate world that was your path for a little while. Take me from IBM and where that led you.
Worked at NC State. I did that for a few months, but I ended up getting promoted at IBM. And while I was there, I kind of made a shift. And I really enjoyed what I did. I was working in human resources, working with budgets and finance, which is kind of my background, and had the opportunity to meet a lot of cool people, do a lot of traveling because IBM is the largest tech company in the world. And so it was great to continue to climb the corporate ladder. Um, but in early 2000, early 2003, 2004, the tech bubble burst, and there was a lot of things going on there. And I just felt like, with this type of uncertainty, I'd rather be doing or working in an environment that I know I want to be in, because I probably would feel like I'm not working a day in my life. Had I known then what I know now, it'd be a different story. But it was such that our business unit was outsourced from IBM to Fidelity Investments. So I ended up working at Fidelity for about a year. But I left Fidelity knowing that I wanted to get into college athletics, and I had applied for jobs. I didn't get them. One of the things that I wanted to do was to take that off the table and go back to school and get a degree in sport management. And so my wife at the time graduated from law school, and we ended up moving back to Richmond, and I ended up going to VCU, where they had a global sport leadership program. And that's where it really took off for me, because it was very relational. We had to get out and meet people and make projects, do projects with other schools. And so once I finished with that, it took about 9 months for me to land my first job after I graduated, but I started working at Hampton University. So that was my first full-time job in college athletics as the athletic business manager, the ticket manager, and the event staff manager. So multiple roles, but nothing like jumping in the deep end.
No doubt. From Hampton, tell me your university path that eventually led you to Campbell, but then also to, you saw the business world, you saw the paychecks you got from the business world, the hours that you got from the business world, which I would assume were a little bit better. You go into college athletic, things are a little different. How did it still grip you? How did it still make you see that this is the path that you wanted to take?
Yeah, well, number one, I'm still married. So that's a good thing out of all of this, because the paychecks were a little bit different. Um, Working at Hampton was a really good experience, very eye opening. But one of the things that I always tell people when I get the opportunity is do your job very well, and the next job will find you. You won't have to find it. And it was during my time at VCU that I had the opportunity to get to know a lot of people on the athletic staff, even though I was in grad school, because it was literally like 25 yards away in the next building. So we always worked over there. So from Hampton, I got a call after about 2 years to come to VCU to run their ticket operation and be, one of their business managers as well, to work with accounts receivable. So it's a great opportunity to move up. And again, I'm going back to, a place I'd actually graduated from as well. And so I did that. Great experience, great learning experience. Had some really good basketball teams there. The head coach at the time was Anthony Grant, who left VCU, went to Alabama, went to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now he's the head coach at the University of Dayton. But we had really good basketball, made some really good friendships. And then after about 2.5 years there, I got a phone call about a really good opportunity at the University of Cincinnati. And that was the one that, I had to really sit down with my wife and talk about. At the time, our kids were 4 and 1, and we really didn't know anybody out there. But I knew that Cincinnati had just moved to the Big East. I knew that the opportunity to go out there was going to be really impactful because of the skill set that they needed. They needed someone with a business and finance background that could actually run a ticket office, which I had been doing now for the last 5 years. And so my wife and I, we packed up and sight unseen, we moved to Cincinnati, and we were out there for over 8 years. But again, it was there where I really had the opportunity to grow my leadership skills. I worked for 3 different athletic directors. And so that really caused me to be adaptable and nimble to have to learn different leadership styles, but I also used that opportunity to shape my own leadership style. And it was during those times where I went from an assistant AD to an associate AD to a senior associate AD to a deputy AD. And just, being good at what I do. The same thing happened. One of the athletic directors at Cincinnati just so happened to get the job at Virginia Tech. And I always told him, I said, if you ever find some room, I'd love to come back. So it took about 3 years, but his name is Whit Babcock. He finally called me, and I ended up moving back to Virginia from Cincinnati after being there for, like I said, over 8 years, almost 9 years. And so once I got to Virginia Tech, he knew the plan that, I wanted to be an athletic director, but it wasn't going to be at just any school. I'm not trying to jump to like a Power 5, what I'm really trying to do is find a school that fits my vision, my values, and, something similar to the school I went to, the University of Richmond. And so I'd always said that, there was really four schools that were on my radar. And that was Richmond, William and Mary, Elon, and Campbell. And it just so happens that the other three schools kind of fell off the radar because either the ADs got contract extensions or they hired somebody else. And then Campbell came open, and I said, I think that's the job I really want. It's back in my home state of North Carolina. The Christian values that based on the university bases itself on is absolutely something that I'm interested in. And so we just let the process play out. I had the full support of the athletic director at Virginia Tech. And hey, I think, God had his hand in it, because if it was just me, I might have messed it up, but I think it worked out pretty well.
Absolutely. And when you think about, you told us everything that attracted you to this job. When you got into this job, what were some of the things that you liked about this place? You might have known, but getting into it and working day by day, why has this place even grown bigger in your heart?
You know what? The big thing is the people. Like I said before, we haven't had to do any major financial cuts or furloughs or anything like that with our staff. And I think that's a big testament to everyone coming together, understanding the situation, and being selfless, not selfish. And so when everybody pulls in the same direction, it's easier to get things done. Even though I know people don't necessarily see all of us all the time, I think by and large, most people understand that we are working, first and foremost to better our student athletes and make sure that they have a great experience. And then number two, to make sure that we all have each other's backs. And I know it's easy for me to say that, and I know I'm working on it, and we work on that every single day with everything that we do. But that's really the biggest thing that I can say. I mean, I've worked with some people that you really don't want to work with, but again, I've worked with some people that make your job pretty easy, and I think that's where we are as Campbell University. It is like family. I remember when I first got here, I was walking on campus in the summer, and it was hot. And there was a student, and I went over to the student. I asked them, I started talking, and they never asked me my name. They never said anything. They just started telling me about why they love Campbell so much. And they were a sophomore, and the other one was a grad student, and they were friends. They were from the same hometown somewhere in South Carolina, but they just started talking. And it's like, I'm a total stranger to these individuals. Never asked me my name. They never flinched, and they talked to me for about 10 minutes. And finally, I told them, "Oh, thank you very much. I'm the new athletic director here, and I appreciate your time." And they're like, "Oh, wow, that's great. That's great." Then they wanted to talk some more, but I didn't want to be late for my meeting, so I had to go.
I know, Omar, one of the things, and it seems like 2020 has been such a long year, but people may have forgotten a little bit. You started this job a couple of summers ago. You were getting the lay of the land. You were starting to put some things in motion, and then February and COVID happens. Has it been a little bit frustrating that you have had to deal with this major pandemic, just like everybody has, but it's kind of maybe put a halt on some of your plans because you've had to deal with this disaster?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. one thing that someone told me is that you as a leader will be so much better once the pandemic is done and there's a vaccine and other things in place, because you had to lead through it. And they said that, other people had the opportunity to get the wind under their wings for, 2, 3, 5, 10 years as an athletic director and then pivot. But 6 months in, and we have to do this pivot, it makes it unique because I'm still really learning the organization and learning people and trying to put plans in place. But at the same time, you got to make sure that you're looking out for the health and safety of not just student athletes, but your staff as well, because we didn't know what we didn't know about the virus. But everybody's in a different place with it. And so, I tried to do more listening than talking during that time and making sure that I hear what individuals are feeling, because what I don't want people to do is feel like we're forcing them to do something they don't want to do. So I'm glad the university, took the stance of sending everyone home. I think we discovered, and this is part of the silver lining, we discovered how to be productive, when working remotely. We discovered, technology, that there are certain things that we know we can do from home, and there are certain things that we need to be in the office to do. And so with those things, it's been great because it's caused me to literally recalibrate, what some of the plans I had in order to better utilize technology, in order to better utilize people as we move forward. So that's the silver lining, but it's more like, when is this going to end, so that we can really start putting these things into place. So all we can do is just keep planning. We know that, again, vaccines are being shipped out, but in the end, college athletics won't be the same, but it's not going away either.
Finally, Omar, you have mentioned them throughout this interview, unprompted, and I know how much they mean to you. But tell us about your wonderful family.
Oh yeah, you know what? Without them, all of the success, is bittersweet. But I thank God for them, because I've dragged them across 3 states, and I think we're finally to the point where we're settled in. And so, um, my wife, we've been married now for almost 20 years, and I remember we made the decision, when I decided to switch from corporate America into college athletics, that we would potentially, make sure that we are where we want to be by the time our kids get to high school. And that's what I mean when I say God was in it, because as soon as we got here in North Carolina, a week later, my son started ninth grade. So that was actually a blessing. Started ninth grade in a new high school. And he is in the 10th grade now, 16 years old, basketball player, probably about 6'2" and still growing. My daughter, Mariana, she's 12, seventh grader. She's enjoying herself here, has made a few friends before the pandemic hits, so she talks to them. And then my mom also lives with me as well. She's been with us for the past 16 years. And so it's something that, your mom has taken care of you for so long, and all of a sudden you can be a blessing back to her. But again, without the family, a lot of stuff that we do is bittersweet. And so I'm glad I get a chance to celebrate, some of the small victories with them, and some of the frustrations as well. So, but I love them.
Well, Omar, thank you so much for opening up your time, sharing. I know you're busy. I know we've got a long way to go, but thank you for all you are doing. And thank you for spending a little bit of time and letting us get to know you a little better.
Chris, thank you for the opportunity. Let's do it again sometime.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, take care.